Hare Krishna. Today we'll continue our reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are reading the 8th chapter of the first canto. Today is verse 3. This chapter is called Prayers of Queen Kunti. Tatrasinam Kurupatim Dhritarashtram Saha Nujam Gandharim Putra Shokatam Pritam Krishnam Chamadava. The translation is, there sat the king of the Kurus, Maharaj Yudhisthira, along with his younger brothers, and Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, Kunti, and Draupadi, all overwhelmed with grief. Lord Krishna was also there. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Battle of Kuruksetra was fought between family members, and thus all affected persons were also family members, like Maharaj Yudhisthira and brothers, Kunti, Draupadi, Subhadra, Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and her daughters-in-law, etc. All the principal dead bodies were in some way or other related with each other, and therefore the family grief was combined. Lord Krishna was also one of them as a cousin of the Pandavas and nephew of Kunti, as well as brother of Subhadra, etc. The Lord therefore was equally sympathetic toward all of them, and therefore he began to pacify them befittingly. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We are in a part of the Srimad Bhagavatam after the great war at Kuruksetra had taken place, and so many warriors had lost their lives. And it is mentioned today how most of them, especially the prominent warriors, were related to this family of the Kauravas and Pandavas. It is a great dynasty, and due to the friction caused by the intrigues of the elders, especially Dhritarashtra, who was born blind. Blind materially, he could not see. Blind spiritually, he could not understand how to follow Dharma properly. He was born as the heir to the throne, but because he was blind, then you cannot have a blind king. Blind materially, of course, because the king has to lead, and especially he has to lead in warfare. And so what will a blind man do in a war? And also, it just turns out that also spiritually he wasn't very qualified. As we hear from Prahlad Maharaj, the problem of the blind leading the blind, there it is mentioned how Anda Yatandai Upaniyamanas Tepisa Tantram Urudam Nibada. When the blind lead other blind people, they lead them into destruction. So, because Dhritarashtra couldn't be king, he then wanted that at least my sons should become kings. But of course, that wasn't according to the law. The kingdom had gone to his younger brother Pandu, and Pandu had sons, And of all the sons, the eldest was Yudhisthira. And Yudhisthira Maharaj was qualified both in character and also by law. The law is that the kingdom goes to the eldest son in the dynasty, and he was the eldest son. But due to strong attachment to becoming king, then Dhritarashtra, he was plotting. And he was plotting because his son, eldest son Duryodhana, had very strong ambition. He wanted to be king. And under the advice of his uncles like Shakuni and the encouragement of his father Dhritarashtra, they tried to kill the sons of Pandu. So throughout their lives growing up, there was this enmity. And at some point, after having tried to kill them many times, and after diplomacy had failed, then war was imminent. Part of the diplomats was Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He tried to go and speak to Duryodhana to dissuade him against this war. This is unlawful. Your cousins are the rightful claimants of the kingdom. Duryodhana would not change his mind. Even when he was begged, okay, you give them 5 villages, let them rule. Kshatriyas need to rule something. They have got that bhava, that mood of control, heroism, leadership. And as such, they require to have a tract of land, some people to protect and to rule over. Duryodhana said, no, I will not give even land big enough to stick a pin. Duryodhana is hilarious in some sense because he's stubborn. You've ever seen a dog? Sometimes they put a cloth in the dog's mouth, and then the owner starts pulling at the cloth, and the dog is holding on. He doesn't want to let go. It's called dog stubborn. He was given advice by so many people that give up this enmity against your own cousins, give up this adharmic path, trying to take over a kingdom that doesn't really belong to you. Yudhisthira is more qualified and he's the rightful heir to the kingdom. Let him rule. But Duryodhana would not change his mind. To the point that even when Krishna himself came, Duryodhana thought that he was going to change Krishna's mind. What was his plan? I'll cook him an elaborate feast. He's from Vrindavan. He's Vaishya. He doesn't know royal eating. Once he tastes all those dishes, then Keshav will take my side. But Krishna came, he said, I will not accept any of your food. I am not distressed, nor do I have any particular affection for you. So these are the reasons generally that people accept a meal from others, distress or out of affection. As we hear from Srila Rupa Goswami Pad, that giving prasadam and accepting prasadam, bhungte bhojate chaiva, these are part of the loving exchanges. So where there's no affection, no love flowing, we don't want to eat. For example, if someone is your sworn enemy, will you want to go to their house to eat their food? No. In fact, growing up, we used to hear from the elders that even in our dreams, we should try to avoid eating. If someone in your dreams, that is like our enemy or family enemy, if they give you food, even in your sleep, in your dreams, try to make sure you don't eat, because it was understood that when you eat, even in your dreams, you could be eating some type of voodoo. That bathing is Zulu, baguloya. So we should not eat anything from anyone, especially people who are out and out inimical. So this is Duryodhana, completely stubborn, no room for good advice. And because Dhritarashtra, although he wasn't out and out evil, by associating with his son, Duryodhana, hearing from him, hearing from Shakuni, he also became determined to win this kingdom even unlawfully. So association and affection, if we have undue affection for people who are not fit, morally and spiritually, who are corrupt, because of our affection for such persons, we become dragged into their sinful type of living, and or we are involved as accomplices in their Adamic activities. So Dhritarashtra, due to too much affection for his son, who was very sinful, this Duryodhana, even at his very birth, so much inauspicious signs were there. It was said by Vyasadeva himself that if you want to save your dynasty, kill this child. But my son, this mamata, aham mameti, that which comes from my body is related to my body, is mine. So is my son. Even though we see that he may destroy the entire dynasty, no, we cannot kill him. So his association with Duryodhana, through hearing from him and his affection for him, led him to become even more blind to following the proper Dharma, although he was coming in a line of personalities that stand for Dharma. So when diplomacy had failed, Krishna couldn't convince him, then war is imminent. So Kuruksetra war took 18 days. And so many lost their lives. We know grandfather Bhishma lost his life on the 10th day. Of course, Bhishma Dev is a Maharati, very powerful warrior, and he was really running through the armies. But because he had affection for the Pandavas, he had given understanding of how he could be killed. Bhishma Dev had also taken a vow that he would not fight a woman. And so there was this Shikandi who, in a previous life and in this life, is now a man who is a woman. What are they called? There's a name. And so Bhishma would not fight because then Arjuna was shooting from behind Shikandi. So in this way, the grandsire was put on a bed of arrows. I think on the 10th day, the son of Arjuna, Airavan, he had that son with Ulupi. He was killed. The verse is talking about how, because all the prominent bodies that were strewn all over the battlefield, who were killed during this war, were related to all of them. It's one big family. Therefore, Dhritarashtra, just on his own, he had 100 sons. And these 100 sons of Dhritarashtra were all killed. And practically all of them were killed by Bhima. Bhima made a vow to kill all the sons of Dhritarashtra. And he was true to his vow, that even by the 6th or 7th day, he had already killed about 7 of them. And he killed Tushashan. Tushashan, he was very much pivotal to the insult of Draupadi. That he was dragging her by the hair and he tried to disrobe her, embarrass her by making her naked in an assembly of men. So Bhima had promised that he was going to drink his blood. These are Kshatriyas, yes. And he did, when he killed him, he ripped out his heart and he drank his blood. Bhima ki jai. And even Draupadi, although she's a princess, but she's a Kshatriya princess, they are warriors. She had said that she would wash her hair with the blood of Dushashan. So here we see that insult to women as a class is very, very detrimental. That the entire dynasty was destroyed, wiped out because of this insult to a chaste woman, Draupadi. 100 sons of Dhritarashtra killed by Bhima. And the last son that was killed was the main instigator. This was Duryodhana. See the character of Yudhisthira. Yudhisthira is so saintly, the son of Dharmaraj, that although Duryodhana, every child in the Vedic world at birth, the astrologers come and they read the chart of that particular child and they can understand the character and activities that will come in the life of this child. And therefore they give a name in relation to the astrological chart of this particular child. So Duryodhana, he made people cry. His activities caused pain to others, and he was given that name. But Yudhisthira wouldn't call him that. Yudhisthira was respecting him as his cousin. He would call him Suryodhana, one who's doing good, who brings joy, sukha, not brings difficulty to others. So this is the difference between the two. So this Duryodhana, finally he had his showdown with Bhimasen. He had escaped on the 18th day. They found him by a lake. And even though he had acted unscrupulously, just like in the killing of the son of Arjuna, Abhimanyu. So Dronacharya had created this formation called the Chakra Vyuha. And he created it while Arjuna was caught up in a fight. Was it Subhaga, Dubhaga, someone he was fighting? And he knew, as their martial arts teacher, as their fighting teacher, that only Arjuna had learned about the Chakra Vyuha, how to enter it and how to destroy it. So when Arjuna was busy engaged, he formed this formation. And the plot was to surround Yudhisthira, capture him. So if you capture the king or the leader of the opposite army, then the war is over. Just like in chess. Any person who plays chess, everyone is trying to go and attack the king. And then once the king has been captured, cornered, that's the end of the game. So that was his plan. But he didn't know that the 16-year-old son of Arjuna, this Abhimanyu, he had heard when that was being instructed to Arjuna, but of course he had only heard half. He knew how to break into the formation. So he broke into that formation and he was fighting valiantly. He killed, it said almost like 5 Akshohinis in that segment of the war. And then all the Kaurava warriors, without shame surrounded him. And they were shooting him from behind. They attacked his chariot. They chopped off his bow. Ultimately, his skull was bashed in by the mace of one of the sons of Dushashan. So very, very, very underhanded tactics were involved there. And after that, Kana himself had to face a similar situation because he had been also cursed, by Parashuram, that at some point, the curse has to come true. And he was off his chariot because his chariot had sort of sunk into the ground, and Arjuna was facing him. Krishna is driving the chariot, and Kana is appealing that follow the laws of Dharma. You cannot fight me while I'm off the chariot, while I'm without my weapons. But Krishna showed his partiality. Krishna says in the Gita that Name dvesta stine priya. I envy no one, I have no particular friends, I'm equal to all. But we see that Krishna says those who are friends to him, then he's their friend. Krishna asked this Kana, where was Dharma when you people supported this gambling match? Where was Dharma when Dushashan insulted Draupadi? Where was Dharma? That time you didn't call for Dharma. When Abhimanyu was killed, where was Dharma? You didn't follow. Now you are appealing to Dharma. It is said those who protect Dharma are protected by Dharma. If you don't protect the religious principles, then you will not get the benefit of religious principles. So in this way, Krishna instructed Arjuna, kill this one. And Arjuna, he shot an arrow which had like a half moon shape, just hacked off his head. That was the end of Karna. Duryodhana is at the head of all this because he instigated so many people against the Pandavas. And he, with his ambition, in the Gita he mentions, in pride, just see all these warriors who have come here to lay their lives down for my sake. He understood that he was practically pushing them into a slaughterhouse, but for his sake. So the king is meant to be the servant of the people. He doesn't want the kingdom for his own enjoyment and glory. That is seen after this whole war in how Maharaj Yudhishthira becomes so depressed, so hurt that because of my ambition to become king, because of the need to put me on the throne, so many warriors, so many men have lost their lives. Here, all of them are in deep grief at all this loss. Gandhari, the wife of Dhritarashtra, she lost all 100 sons. I mean, you can try to imagine those of you who have children, if you've ever lost a child, that pain cannot be described. We get an insight about that when we hear the case of Ashwatthama. So Ashwatthama is the son of Drona. Drona was also killed in the war at some point. He was killed also through the use of trickery. Because tit for tat, they started to not follow the rules of warfare, and then Krishna allowed that they can also, the Pandavas can also follow the same tactics. In the case of Dronacharya, he's such a powerful warrior, he's the teacher of everyone, and he was just destroying everyone. So how to kill him? Then Bhima, he killed an elephant by the name of Ashwatthama. The ploy was that you tell Dronacharya his son Ashwatthama is killed, then he will become depressed, he will stop fighting. Then only can he be killed. So when Bhima said Ashwatthama has been killed, Dronacharya didn't believe. Because Bhima is not famous for being the most dharmic. He's famous as a great Herculean and voracious eater and powerful man. But when Drona tried to confirm with Yudhisthira, who didn't want to speak this from his mouth, when Yudhisthira spoke his truth that Ashwatthama, the elephant, has been killed, when he mentioned the elephant, then Krishna blew his conch shell, Panchajanya. Poo! So what was heard was, Ashwatthama, poo, has been killed. The elephant was taken out of the equation. So Dronacharya, feeling depressed, losing his son, powerful warrior, but still affection is a natural quality of the living being, to have affection for one's offspring. It is natural. So then he was killed. But this Ashwatthama did the most heinous thing at the end, that he went and killed the 5 sons of the Pandavas who were sleeping. He also killed Dristadumna in the night. He killed Shikandi in the night. And so he was hunted down by the Pandavas, and Arjuna captured him. But when he was meant to be killed, Draupadi said, no, you cannot kill him. You cannot kill him. He's the son of our Guru. And then she mentioned this point that I have lost my children and I know the pain of losing children. So I don't want his wife to go through this, his mother to go through this pain of losing a child. See the softness of Draupadi's heart. The man has just butchered his 5 sons, her 5 sons, young boys in their sleep. But compassion means, as I feel pain, I can also understand that someone else feels also pain, and I would not wish that upon even my enemy. Even my enemy. So now that everyone has come out of the war, it is said only 12 people survived that war. Now Krishna is there with both, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, the Pandavas, Draupadi, and they are all besieged by this grief. The very important point there is that the Lord, the personality of Godhead, Krishna, is also feeling the grief of his family members. He's a cousin to the Pandavas. He's the nephew of Kunti. And he was also experiencing that grief, being loyal in terms of family connections and affection which is coming from his heart. So grief. This material world is very empowered to make us grieve, because everything here is temporary and it will be taken away. And we are left grieving for persons, grieving for relationships, grieving for assets, grieving for betrayals. It is a place for making us cry. But the Lord is always sympathetic to his devotees, and he is known as the one who dries up the ocean of tears from the devotees, because this world makes us cry. But he dries up oceans of that lamentation by giving his personal association to his devotees. Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya cha duskritam. Paritranaya. He comes to protect and to enliven the devotees, and therefore he was with the Pandavas through it all. Through it all. In their sorrow and in their joy. That is why when later on we hear, when Krishna leaves the association of the Pandavas, Queen Kunti speaks a very famous verse where she is feeling that when you've been with us, then we've been able to tolerate and go through all types of upheavals. But she saw no greater calamity than losing the association of Krishna. Therefore she invited, please give us more calamities. Let them come again and again. Because if we see these distressful, calamitous situations, then we will have your association. But without your association, it's the greatest calamity. And without your association, then we see the calamity of repeated birth and death. So here we see how the Lord is intimately associated with his devotees. Lord Vishnu, Krishna, he mentions in the Leela of the cursing of Jai and Vijay that the activities of my servants, they reflect on me. And so if Jai and Vijay have offended you, the four Kumaras, I take it to be my personal offense to you. He says that because of my dedication to serving my devotees, I have become so auspicious to the people. He says, my lotus feet have become powerful source of removing countless sins of those who come to them because of my service to my devotees. Therefore, even if my own arm would cause harm to my devotees, I'm ready to lop that arm off. This is my vow and dedication to the service of my devotees. So the Lord is very chaste to his servitors, that he goes through everything with the Pandavas, and he shows us that even if we are dedicated to his service, still this world will act as it is designed. Anityam asukam lokam. Temporary place without any happiness. And of course, warfare definitely creates a lot of suffering and grief. And in this world, because we are desirous of enjoying the external energy, therefore we will go through all types of wars. Some are wars of words, wars of will, wars of diplomatic intrigue, and sometimes wars of weapons where people actually lose their lives. And therefore grief will always follow us in this world, because we are actually at an existential level, we are at a loss, having left the wonderful spiritual association in the spiritual world of the Lord and his wonderful servitors. But Krishna never forsakes one who has taken to his service, that the Lord always remains with that devotee. And just in closing, there's a story that is given about a man who is walking with the Lord at the beach, and then so you can see the footprints, and then at some point he could only see one set of footprints, and the prayer is that, my dear Lord, where were you when I was going through my toughest tests? Because I see on the sand only one set of footprints. And the Lord answers that those set of footprints are my own, because at that point I was carrying you. And it is said that during the exams, and we have experience of this, during the exams at school, then the teacher is the most quiet. The room is very silent. The very person who was teaching, giving the lessons, when it's time for the exam, they're quiet. It's as if they do not care for you, they will not help you. But the exam comes, and it's meant for just us to go through. The lessons have been imparted by the teacher. Now it is time for us to show our learning. What focus did we give to the lessons? And now we can glorify the teacher by being able to answer the questions. In a similar way, at that time of our greatest trouble and distress and trials in this world, it seems that the Lord is nowhere to be seen. He's quiet. But that at that point, when we go deeper into our depending on Krishna and thinking, how can I serve the Lord now in these conditions that are trying, that are testing, that are difficult? That is the glory of the Lord servant. And that is the glory of one who takes shelter of the Lord. That even in the most difficult situations, he never gives up holding on to the lotus feet of the Lord. So we pray, of course, for the Lord to not only show us that exam of trials and tribulations, we hope for service that only gives wonderful times, but because the nature of this world is such that happiness and distress, they come and go. So just as we hanker for bliss and happiness in our service, we should budget and have a very strong budget for difficulty and tribulations and trials. But we should always remember how the Lord is always on the side of the devotees. Just as we see him here, he's there with all the family members of the Kuru Dynasty to grieve with them and to support them in their hour of pain, having lost so many family members in the war at Kuruksetra. So thank you for spending time with us and with the Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So we will see all of you, hopefully, on Friday. And if anyone has some time this evening at 7 p.m. South African time, we'll be speaking some principles of life and relationships from the Ramayana. So every Wednesday starting today at 7 p.m. until Ram Navami, we will try to speak something from Ramayana. So thank you, very wonderful to spend time with you, Ekanath Matiji, and hope your day goes well, and blessings of Srila Prabhupada upon all of us. Hare Krishna.